Hi, welcome to Vocero Hispano TV. Today we're going to be talking about suicide awareness in relation with the organization called Be Nice. Suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the United States. In 2020, when the pandemic was happening, 45,979 Americans died by suicide. The number of attempts is even greater, and it greatly impacts those between 15 to 24 years of age. Today I have Christy Buck, who is the executive director and founder of the organization called Be Nice. They're focused on educating about mental health awareness and suicide prevention. She has more than 33 years of experience in the mental health field and has developed 2 classroom programs within the Be Nice program. So we will be talking about suicide prevention, the symptoms it may have, as well as the causes and where to seek help. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, I know this is a very sensitive topic, but it also needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's going on. There's recent cases that we're seeing, and I believe that there should be even more awareness.
Okay. Yeah, so May is Mental Health Month.
Okay.
And that is a time period where it's a great time to be reminded of how important it is to be educated surrounding mental health, mental illness, and then ultimately preventing suicide.
Yeah, for sure. I know that impacts people of all ages too. It's not just kids or adults. It can happen to anybody. So to begin, could you please tell me what Be Nice is currently doing for suicide prevention?
Sure. So we are in the community, in and around West Michigan specifically, and we have in-person training and then virtual training where we offer our community the ability to learn the action plan, which is Be Nice. Okay. So the bigger understanding is that Be Nice translates to how we treat people has an effect on their mental health, right? So if I'm kind and considerate, it makes people feel great. If I don't treat people respectfully, it can make somebody feel low, self-esteem, worthless, hopeless. But then in addition, Be Nice is a plan. So it stands for notice, invite, challenge, and empower. And if you follow the plan, then ultimately you potentially could save someone's life.
Okay. How did this idea come up?
Well, we were in classrooms, and this was about 11 years ago. We were in classrooms already teaching one of our programs. And there was a death by suicide that brought national attention to cyberbullying. So again, how we treat someone in any way has an effect on a person's mental health. So this young man took his life following a cyberbullying incident. And immediately the conversation went to, we have to talk about bullying, we have to talk about LGBTQ, because this young man was gay. But what we knew was that the conversation needed to go back to having an understanding that this person died from a mental health disorder, which 9 out of 10 times when someone takes their life, they're struggling with depression or in combination with another mental health disorder or substance use. So that's where we need to push out awareness about mental health, mental illness, suicide prevention.
I know that you guys are connected with schools. Can you tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing there and what kind of projects and all of that you guys do?
So we created Be Nice, and it's a curriculum. So the curriculum was created in 2012. So we started with a t-shirt and the logo, and then we created the plan. So we go into schools, and specifically into elementary schools. The plan is implemented by teachers in their classrooms. So we have thousands of classroom activities that teachers can implement that go along with the plan: notice, invite, challenge, and empower. And then in middle and high schools, there's leadership groups that are formed. And these leadership groups are trained, and then they take the initiative and they spread the message throughout their school. Okay. So evidence shows that when students are leading initiatives, other students listen. So the plan is put out there through posters, through conversations, through activities. It can be as simple as a notice activity would be, let's notice the good, the right about every single person in this school. So it could be Post-it notes on everybody's locker, making people feel better. This is a place I want to be. I feel like I belong here at my school.
And we were talking about this before we started the interview, that I actually remember you guys coming to my middle school and just presenting guest speakers, doing activities. So it is something very memorable that I have.
Yeah, and it is. And the logo itself, it's something you remember. But that's why we wanted it to be something you can look at, and then you could say, I remember that plan. And then, we've got a lot of different tools. We also have a huge push right now, and this has been simply incredible. Through the pandemic, we actually created our Be Nice Business program. So now we are going into business where, when you were reading the statistics, we're going to get to the bulk of the population that really also are at risk. And those are middle-aged men, specifically those 20 and 30-year-olds that don't go seek treatment and help. So that's an important population to be getting to with the plan.
Yeah. I was reading that statistic where men die by suicide every 14 minutes compared to women who die every 55 minutes. Do you think there's like a reason between that comparison?
Yeah. So men tend to not go seek help and treatment more often. That's one. They often feel like they can get through this. They can shake it off. They're also missing a big piece, and those are protective factors that can be friends and people that they can actually talk to about things that may be troubling them in their lives. In addition, men will typically seek out a lethal means to take their life. And so this is why education regarding gun safety is very important, and why people need to have an understanding that we need to know that when somebody is struggling with a mental health disorder, and I possibly may be worried that they may be thinking about taking their life, I need to remove the access out of their possession, out of their home.
Yeah. And I was also reading about that one of the main ways that they do it is with guns.
You got it.
It's unfortunate. I know there's been probably an increase in suicides after the pandemic as well, just because everybody's locked in their homes. There's no way to get out. We had to stay home, technically. There has been an increase with suicides in the pandemic.
So unfortunately, in 2019 and 18, we actually were seeing reduction of suicides.
Okay.
So programs were working, and this is national, and also here in Kent County. And then during the pandemic, they actually saw a dip. And that could have been that people were at home, but they were with family members. We were all in this together, correct? We all were possibly isolated. Some of us had to go to work, but we were with people that we also knew we had to be at work with. So we saw a dip, but also then we saw a rise. And so again, now people's lives were changed, whether it be financially, whether it be while I was at home, I had marital problems. We saw an increase in domestic abuse during the pandemic. In addition, kids now were struggling, and now we're in year 2, and we saw a rise where there was confusion about how I was going back to school. There was also people with the illness. People were dying of the illness. We were losing more people. People were more fearful. So now what happens is an increase in risk factors. There were more stressful life events happening the past year.
Yeah, and another thing is that everything is just hitting everybody at once.
Yes, exactly.
You mentioned financial, marital, like a little bit of everything is just hitting somebody at once, and I can see why that would make somebody go into depression and all of that.
And even during that year too, you just look at deaths from illnesses in general, right? We were looking at people struggling with illnesses, and then on top of it all, contracting COVID, and then they were dying alone. Well, that does have an effect on people's mental health, family members, loved ones, medical workers. All right, now you're talking, again, risk factors have gone on the rise.
Yeah. What do you think are the main causes for suicide?
Well, at the top of the list is depression. Okay. So the illness called depression. So first and foremost, we got to increase awareness regarding what is depression, the illness. Not just depression, the word, but the illness. All right, so what are the signs and symptoms? Then in addition, now you add on depression in combination with stressful life events. So now you go to what's stressful. Well, it could be traumatic events, death of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of my lifestyle, being filled with feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, Now I need to have a bigger picture where now I can have a greater understanding of, I'm seeing someone depressed, but I'm also seeing that they have some risk factors there also. So now what do I do? And that's where notice, invite, challenge, empower, that plan is so important for people to understand.
And that was my next question. What would be some of the symptoms? Like if we just see somebody, they're acting normal, they're happy, they're laughing, and then next thing you know, they committed suicide.
Yeah.
How do we see that?
So what we're looking for is typically in 70% of deaths by suicide, there were signs and symptoms.
Okay.
And oftentimes it's sad because we didn't realize it until after the person died that maybe they did say something to me that I could have picked up on. So what I'm looking at is, yes, changes in people's behaviors. So that could be sadness, loneliness. It could be somebody isolating. It could be somebody who's angry more often. It could be somebody who is not going to work, not going to school, not completing typical tasks, not being themselves that they typically are. And then in addition, their relationships are affected by this. So those are 3 key ingredients that I'm looking for. Changes in going to work, going to school, carrying out daily activities, and engaging in satisfying relationships. So that's how I can measure a person if they may be struggling, depression, anxiety. And at that point, if I'm seeing these changes in someone's behavior, and in combination that there are other things going on in this person's life, all right, I'm paying attention to this. They just got a divorce. They just had a baby. They were recently married. They recently changed jobs. They recently lost their job. They recently moved to a different city. They recently moved to a different school. This person recently lost someone that they love. Maybe they recently lost a pet. All of these things can be risk factors in someone's life. So now I've got some clues. So now I got to move to that invite point where I'm going to invite myself to start a conversation.
Okay. And what happens if that person doesn't want to talk and they just simply say, I'm okay? What can we do then?
You can say, that's okay, but I am worried about you. You can reiterate that. And we often say, reiterate what you notice. So even when you're starting the conversation, it may be that, Edith, I haven't seen you in church recently. You're always there. I'm really concerned about you. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I'm okay. I'll be fine. Well, I'm going to be checking on you again because I miss you. And I know that church has been really important to you. And I've just noticed recently that you haven't been there.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've done is reiterate it. What does that do? It implants in that person that I care about them. Okay. So persistence and that feeling of making sure that person understands that I want to have a conversation and I'm here for you. And you can even say that too. I'm here for you. I'm worried about you.
Yeah. My next question was if parents, I believe that a relationship between a child and parents, it could be a little complicated.
Sure.
Within trust, and especially in the Hispanic culture, as we were speaking before, that for Hispanic people, it's a little bit difficult for them to come out and tell their parents what they're feeling because that simply doesn't really exist, or it's just hard for them to speak about.
Right.
But what can the parent do if they start noticing that their child is acting this way or their behavior is changing?
Again, we're looking at that school piece, engaging in their daily activities, carrying out daily activities, meaning going to school, participating in things that they love, not isolating themselves, or if they are isolating themselves, again, that's a sign. And then also, what's their relationship like with me? So now I have to measure, a parent needs to look at what my child is typically, and now things have changed to, this is not typical of who they are. They're going up to their bedroom and spending more time alone and not wanting to join the family for typical activities. They're being more secretive. So they may be not telling you more often things that typically they would tell you, share with you. And then in addition, they're giving up things that they typically love. So suddenly they don't want to be involved in anything anymore. Maybe they don't want to be involved in anything with the family. Those are warning signs that maybe something bigger is going on. So that's when a family member has to have a conversation with their son, daughter. I'm worried about you right now. Please sit down and talk to me. You haven't been coming down to the dinner table. You've been angry more often. You've been secretive. This is not typical of you. And so the parent, again, is letting the child know what they are noticing. I often like to tell parents to also, when you're telling your child this, make sure you include the things that typically were good about the child. Like whenever you got home from school, you always stopped in my office and would say hi to me. What is going on right now? You're not doing that again. Or maybe it's not, they're not typically helping you around the house when they always did. You always help me around the house. You actually come home and tell me I'm going to go empty the dishwasher. What's going on? What's different? I want to understand this. So making sure that you are telling them what you are noticing in their behavior. And then as a parent, do not be afraid to make a phone call to your school. Stop in to visit the teachers and ask them, what are you seeing in my child's behavior? Can you help me? Because this is what I'm seeing at home. Not being afraid of what people are going to think of you, because this is your son, daughter. And we know that social media has a huge role in kids' lives right now. I have to have a greater understanding that kids are on social media 17, 18 hours a day. And they are getting so much information, and some of it is misinformation. So this is where a parent's role is really important.
And cyberbullying is also a bigger exposure
Absolutely.
Within social media.
Absolutely. And every platform that our kids are on, it's happening. And also, we might think that our kids can handle these, but no, we have no idea what might be going on in my son, daughter's head. If I know, and my child even comes to me with a video of a friend of theirs who was getting harassed and bullied, I have to say to my daughter, son, I can't imagine how that person is feeling right now. What are we doing to help that individual right now? We got to take it seriously instead of participating even in laughing about that incident.
Yeah. We just saw a case in Marquette of a child, you mentioned he was 12 years old, that committed suicide inside his school.
Yep.
So what could teachers or anybody, or school leaders, what can they do if they notice that a child is acting a little different?
Yes. So one is, it's really important that schools do bring some type of mental health education to their school. And ultimately, those education programs, like Be Nice, it's starting very simple. It's having kids having a greater understanding that mental health is how you think, act, and feel. And when you're not thinking, acting, and feeling right, it could be the start of something bigger. So let's make it simple. Let's talk about it, right? Because ultimately, when we're making it easy to talk about, then in middle and high school, when kids are very vulnerable, because at that time, hormones are changing. Everything about myself as a person, right? A lot of changes during adolescence are going on. And other kids pick up on this stuff. So at that point, now we're going to broach, how can we prevent suicide? And that is recognizing when someone might be struggling. So is a person do they have risk factors? Are they a person that is more, are they shy? Are they picked on more easily? Do people isolate and do people alienate them from activities? Are people vicious and mean to these individuals? Those folks are at risk. We got to pick up on those signs and symptoms. We got to pick up on when a student is possibly acting out in anger, changing their appearance to something that was not about, they were not like that before. Making sure as parents, we are keeping weapons and guns locked up. We have to have a greater understanding, and that goes with education. We can't be afraid to talk about guns. We cannot be afraid to talk about if you have weapons in your home, you need to lock these up. In addition, making sure that other students are educated about suicide prevention, and that means noticing changes in someone's behavior where they may be talking more about suicide, posting, putting it online. In addition, one big thing with youth and kids, mental illness is a brain disease. These thoughts are happening in their head, in their brain. Oftentimes, we don't know what's going on in someone's mind. So, the last part of the brain to develop is the part of the brain that controls impulsivity. Okay, so our brains are developing until we're 25, 26 years old. We have to make sure that we're talking about this so people know that this is not a black and white situation. When you do anything to harm yourself, you could be at risk of dying, never being here again.
Yeah.
Right? And so one of the biggest life-saving techniques for suicide prevention is being able to ask the question, are you thinking of suicide?
Yeah. That reminded me of the Oxford shooting that happened here in
Yes.
near Detroit, where the person that shot Ethan Crumbley, he well, the court cases, you know, that have been happening with the parents and how they're being charged with involuntary manslaughter or homicide. There was clear evidence that their child was experiencing this mental illness.
Yes.
But by the looks of it, they weren't really paying attention to him, or it was just hard to speak with him. I'm not sure what the case is, you know. But the thing is that he had access eventually to a gun, and that's how the shooting happened.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. It's just something that I believe we should be talking about a little bit more.
Yes.
And I'm glad that Be Nice exists so they can, you know, raise more awareness about this and let a lot of people know more about what suicide actually is and what to do when you're experiencing it.
And what would be amazing is parent education. And so making that part of a requirement for
Do you
parents.
guys offer that?
Yes. Oh, yes. We love doing parent education because parents have to be on board. I mean, when your son, daughter is struggling with a mental health disorder, you are part of the action plan. You are the protective factor in their lives. You are such an important piece. And a lot of your piece of the pie is helping them to get help. So finding where there is treatment, right, and making sure that they're getting help and treatment. And decreasing that stigma to say, it's okay that your son, daughter is getting help. And, you know, you often hear, if your child had a broken leg, you know that you would take your child to the doctor, to the hospital, whatever, to get help and treatment. Same thing with a mental health disorder. So much more could be done if parents were educated.
Oh, where can people contact Be Nice in order to get more information
I love it.
or more
Absolutely.
education about
it? So one thing at benice.org, that's our website, you can click on to take the pledge. And taking the pledge isn't donating money. It's taking the pledge, which is learning the action plan. So the action plan is translated into Spanish also. So we want everybody to go on, click, take the pledge, learn the action plan. Then if you go to the programming tabs, you can look under where we have programming. So if you want more information about schools, click on that tab, and then you can fill in your name and address, and we'll set up a time to chat and talk. If you are a employee at a business, organization, anywhere, wherever we're being listened to right now, because we do have virtual programming now, take the program to your HR department and see if they want to bring the program into your business. And it's an amazing program. We love it. And I love today that you were able to actually recognize that when you were in middle school, you learned about the program. And it is that type of program. It resonates. And along with, it has a visibly friendly logo.
For sure. I remember it, so I'm pretty sure that a lot of others
I love it.
most likely remember it. And you also mentioned that there is a number that we're going to put on screen right now of the crisis or emergency phone number. But you also mentioned that that number might change pretty soon.
Yes, and it's good news. So it's 1-800-273-8255. That is a National Prevention Suicide Hotline. And so if you dial that number, you are given direction to press a couple buttons, and then you're put into a phone system with a clinician that then you can have a conversation with. I also like to say that if I'm with somebody that I might suspect is suicidal, and I've started my conversation with this person, and here I am, maybe I'm a friend, I'm a peer, I'm a coworker, I'm going to sit with that individual. I can check with them. Let's dial this number. Let's have a conversation with someone so you can get help and assistance. All right? That number is changing to a 3-digit phone number nationally this July to 988. So also what was mandated within our state was every student in the state of Michigan on the back of their ID cards for their school is the suicide prevention hotline.
Okay.
That's huge. That's huge, that at the fingertips of every student in the state of Michigan, they have that phone number that they can dial.
And the fact that it's changing into a smaller number, a 3-digit number, it's easier.
Kind of helps.
Yeah,
Yep.
and easy to remember as
Exactly.
well. So that's great. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so
and
much.
Thank you for all that you do. I know
Yeah.
that it's a
I
hard
love it.
topic to speak about, but it's something that we definitely need to speak about.
It sure is. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, we're gonna include the phone numbers for the emergency hotline and for Be Nice overall in our description of this interview. For more interviews of these kind as well as others in Spanish and English, we invite you to visit our YouTube page on El Vocero Hispano TV and on our website, which is elvocerous.com. Thank you.